Welcome to Simply Caroline, a podcast dedicated to women empowerment where we will discuss a bunch of different subjects such as life, parenting, love, business, money, relationships, healing, recovery, addiction, entrepreneurship, and so much more. A podcast I'll do my best to keep simple, fun, and relatable and bring you tools to help you better your life. So thank you for being here. And here's your host, myself, Caroline Blanchard. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for being here again this week. I have another special guest, Brooke Romaneschi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
And I butchered your name right there.
It's okay. It happens to me all the time. I blame my husband for my last name. So
So can you pronounce it for us, please?
it's Rozmanowski. But if you find me anywhere, we just go with Rozzie in the business because it's way easier.
It's way easier. So yeah, let's start with your website. It's Brooke.
It's BrookeRozzie.com. Yeah.
There you go.
When my husband and I met, actually everyone knew him as Roz. And when we started dating, no one really knew that his first name was Adam. So when I was saying Adam, people were like so thrown off. So
That's so funny. That's so funny. So, Brooke, we're here to talk about women's health in general, but more specifically, hormone health. You help a lot of women feeling better. And, I've covered that subject before, and I think I can't cover it enough because I also feel like different specialists will approach it differently. And, I'm positive that what you say will resonate with us because it's so all over the place, hormones. I have 2 daughters and a son. But my 2 daughters are showing me, I won't say daily, but almost how much hormones is real. Before having kids, I didn't realize how real it was, but oh my goodness, it's very real. So let me know, what are you doing now?
Yeah, so I run a team of functional nutrition practitioners, and we really work with women who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, who are reaching that age where things start to just not feel right, but you're not really getting any answers for what's going on, whether, whatever stage of life you're in, whether you've had kids, not have kids, but you're kind of at that point where like things are starting to compound and you're starting to get symptoms that maybe you didn't get before. Maybe weight loss is all of a sudden like not easy, or you're gaining weight, or digestive symptoms, PMS, hormonal things that are just kind of unexplained. And that's a lot of the women that we work with. What really led us into it was my own personal experience about 12 years ago now. In a 4-month time frame, I was already in the fitness industry halfway through my career. So I was eating well, I was working out regularly, but I gained 20 pounds in a 4 months time frame without any explanation. It's not like I was eating a pizza every night. And I would go to our physician and ask, can you check this? And can you do that? And I would leave every appointment in tears and just frustrated and feeling like dismissed, like there wasn't any answers for me, and just somehow like my body was just kind of like going against me. And I had gone through physician to physician, and I just intuitively felt like this can't be it. Like there has to be something else going on. So I finally started to take more of a functional route with my health. Finally got the right testing, finally got answers. I had clinically low hypothyroid at the time. And I just remember for the first time feeling like, oh my gosh, like it's not me. I don't have to diet more. I was like nitpicking my nutrition and working out harder. And all of that was actually making the situation worse. So for the first time, I kind of understood what my clients had been experiencing, and it really transformed a lot of the way that we work with women, because I can't tell you how many people as a trainer at that time that I saw that were working out all the time and just things weren't happening the way they wanted to. And just getting told the standard, we'll eat less and move more. Like internally was probably making people feel like they were going crazy because they weren't feeling good and they weren't getting the results, and it can be really defeating.
Yeah. No, I remember those good years where, I would look at my stomach and I would be like, I will do 20 sit-ups. And I would do 20, 30 sit-ups and whoops, I would see my abs.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, girl, do sit-ups until the cow comes home. Like, there's it's not the same thing anymore. Our body does change. And I mean the phases of our lives change as well. We have kids, we don't digest food the same way. And I'm glad that you say that because, I've been to the doctor as well a few times and you feel like an alien or you feel like it's all in your head or
Yeah.
like, well, get a grip of it. Or, you think about that one piece of pizza that you ate last month and you're like, why? Why? I
Yeah.
should have, not that I'm for a diet culture, but when you're used to whatever weight you are used to and you start going off that weight, it's uncomfortable. So
It
that's
is.
just, not that you need to be thin, but if you're not at your ideal weight anymore where you were happy, it's uncomfortable and we don't know anymore. And then we're being told, well, you know what? It's okay. And then you'll hit menopause. So it's going to be even worse. You're going to have the menopause belly and you're like, oh my gosh, another thing to look forward to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you approach all of that with your clients?
A lot of the things you just said, right? Like our body does change and our life does change, and there's nothing that's not a negative thing. But the problem is we're not being taught how to adapt and support ourselves and our body through those changes that are happening. Because a lot of times we'll hear women who, especially after they've had kids, but even if you haven't had kids, if you're in your 30s or 40s, it's, well, I'm trying to do what I did in my 20s when it was working for me and I was feeling really good, right? And I'm like, but you don't have the same life that you did when you were in your 20s. Your stressors have completely changed. Maybe you own a home now, you have more bills to pay, you have a higher stress job, whatever it is, your body's not the same. And that means that we need to do things differently externally if we want a different result, right? Because what we were able to do at that time, there's multiple layers that can come into that, whether it's been the compounding of stress over the years, or maybe you did have kids and your whole environment has changed. The things that you are responsible for now have completely shifted, whatever that is. We don't take into account how much, the sleep, the stress that we're enduring on a daily basis, all of those things are really contributing to how our body is functioning. So a lot of the times that we see with women in their 30s, 40s, even into their 50s, is it's not necessarily what happened a year ago. It's actually what's been happening for the last 5 to 10 years, and the fact that we haven't adopted the way that we manage everything with that time shift. So when we're working with women, it's really like deep diving individually into what has your health history looked like? What does your home environment look like? What is your life? How do you feel in all of that? And really starting to support their body in every aspect that can come into play with the physical result that you're getting. So we do address the nutrition. We absolutely also address the exercise component, being personal trainers by trade first. And then we also address all the things that we don't always think about, which is actually one of the largest contributing components, is our lifestyle. So our routine on a daily basis, how are we managing stressors on a daily basis? Do we have anything restorative in our week? What is leading us to the food choices that we're making in the first place, right? So it's really learning how to support our life and our body based on those scenarios in there too.
Yes, and you know what? There's one thing that I like that you said there, how we feel.
Yes.
That's one of the components that we tend to ignore. Like we know we're feeling down a bit or kind of depressed a bit, but we're like, oh, whatever, everything's stressful these days and I have these
Yeah.
bills and I have these responsibilities, so it must be that. And you leave it at that, but that's huge.
Yeah. I've said to people, I've never had someone say to me, I want to lose 30 pounds and I don't care how I feel in my skin if I do that. Right. And like that number you're looking for, the 30-pound weight loss, if that's what it is, right? You're really looking for what you think that 30-pound weight loss is going to make you feel. So, and there's nothing wrong with having a 30-pound weight loss goal, right? But it's really more so like, what is the reason behind it? And all of us just want to feel really good. And it's really more so the driving force of the choices you're making in a health capacity should really be aligned around what is going to make my body feel really good. Because when my body's feeling really good, then I am mentally and physically able to operate at my best.
And you're just more productive in general, you
Yeah.
know. I know that when I feel good in my skin and I put on my jeans and they fit, I'm like, yes, let's, today's going to be a good day. But when you
Yeah.
put your jean in the morning and you're bloated and you're like, oh, it's going to be a long day. It's just going to be a long day.
Absolutely. We have had clients who, work in career positions where they had to change the clothes that they were choosing based on how they were digestively feeling that day, right? If they were bloated or not. And I'm like, that's absolutely not normal, right? Like you really don't need to feel that way, but you do need to learn what's making your body function that way, right? And a lot of times we go, and it's not to knock physicians, right? They're doing what they can with the tools that they're given to support.
The time
But
they're given.
Yes, yeah. And a lot of times you go and you're just told to like follow a FODMAP diet or something along those lines, and that's not actually solving the root problem. So, from a functional standpoint, we're really looking at like what is the root issue here so we can get you feeling better faster, but also keep you feeling good for the long term. And a lot of, especially our generation has grown up with the crash dieting mentality. So, everything we do for a short period of time. And instead, we really try to flip it to how can you learn your body and what you need enough so that this is a weird thing for a business to say, like we don't want you to need us forever, right? Like I want you 10 years from now when your life circumstances change, because they most likely will, to still know what you need to do to support your body at that time.
Exactly. But I feel like as human, we get comfortable too fast in a situation and we forget how it was. So we forget to keep, to stay disciplined, because there is no secret to any diets or anything. There's no secret. It's discipline, and it's doing it over and over and over again. And you're like, when can I stop? The answer is never. It's a lifestyle.
Well, it's always, I just had this conversation with someone the other day. I was like, there's always going to be a level of consequence and choice, right? Like I get to choose that if I want things to be quote unquote easy and I want to make short-term emotional choices about my food, then I'm going to deal with the long-term consequences of those choices that I'm doing, right? Or I can be a little bit uncomfortable and have to choose things differently now. And my long-term consequence of that is that I get to feel really good and my health gets to be optimal, right? So we're always going to be presented with that choice, and we're always going to be making a choice. It's just a matter of which one would you rather be more uncomfortable with. And like you said, right, the discipline to choose how I want to feel tomorrow versus the emotional reaction I might be having right now, type of a thing.
Yeah. And you know what, listening to you, I'm also thinking there's such a big part that is society culture in there, because first of all, portions, I've coached people in another life how to eat better. And it was just about portion, not that I was a nutritionist or specialized. It was just about looking at portions. And, when you would tell someone actually what they could eat or what they should eat, it was depressing, because it was literally cutting in half what you're eating. But then I was thinking, like, since my kids are little, I build those huge plates, and it's healthy. I mean, like, it would be a protein with 4 or 5 different vegetables, but I remember serving and having to push some stuff to make it fit on the plates. And then I would be like, eat your whole plate, and when you're done, it's like, do you want a second? Because we have the impression that being healthy is eating a lot. But whether you eat the healthy food or non-healthy food, there's also portions that it seems like we're not, especially when you go into European cultures. I was raised with Italians. So for me, it's like if I didn't take a second plate and a third plate, it was like almost insulting to them. I didn't like the meal, but I was just full. I was just like, I can't anymore.
I grew up in a Southern family, so very similar, but just with different types of food, right? Food is love in that environment, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but also like, yes, very much learned. I always say it's your hunger and satiation hormone, right? You learned how to tune that out and not listen to your body. At the root of it, it's really getting back to listening to your body. And we have become so disconnected from that and being able to really like tune into, am I actually hungry right now? Especially the food that we eat is so void of actual nutrients now. You could eat the same amount of calories, right, from a nutrient depleted diet, meaning a lot of packaged foods, quick on the go things, and the same amount of calories from a whole food based diet. And you would be way more satiated off the whole food based diet than you would off the other. I saw something the other day, and it's so true because we see this all the time. When we encourage a client to eat a heavy protein based breakfast because it'll keep you satiated through the day. And they struggle to do that, but then that same person could go eat an 800 calorie muffin and sugary Starbucks drink. And I'm like, that's the same calorie equivalent, right? But one of them is going to do a lot more for your body hormonally and keep you satiated a lot longer versus that other 800 calorie one is going to very easily lead to you over consuming food and calories through the day, right? So especially when we're looking at portion control, it's really important to choose things that are going to keep you satisfied, that you're eating because you're eating foods the way that your body was designed to receive them.
Yeah. And for me, one big thing I had to reprogram is that food is not comfort. It's not love. It's not my friend. It's not my supporter.
Yeah.
It's fuel for my body. It's fuel to
Yeah.
give me energy. And that too, you watch movies or whatever. When you are depressed, go get the ice cream bucket. When you, when you see them alone at home because their date canceled or whatever, they're full of takeout food and everything. It's just like it's ingrained into us that food is also a comforting thing. And even if you look at all the advertisement that we're bombarded with, it's always like food is your friend and food is there to make you feel better. But food is really just fuel. And I think that this is a big mindset shift to do at some point. But let's get back to, you said, hormonally, it's going to help you more eating like more protein in the morning than instead of going for your muffin. And so explain that a little bit more.
Yeah. So it's funny because we get questions sometimes where people are like, what supplement should I take for my hormones? And I'm like, have you ever looked at the back of a hormone supporting supplement? Because not many people do, right? They buy the marketing from it. It's vitamins and minerals that are exclusively like prioritized by your hormones to function. If we're talking sex hormones or adrenal hormone or thyroid hormone, right? All of those hormonal processes in your body need appropriate amounts of vitamins and minerals to function at the root, right? So if we want to know like what is the best thing that I can do for my body hormonally, it is to rest and get quality sleep, but also strength train to help support hormonal production. And the most important, eat foods in the way that your body was designed to get nutrients from them, because that's the most bioavailable source of those nutrients that your hormones actually need to function. And if we look at like adrenal supplementation, that's a big thing. Adrenal cocktails is really just a lot of concentrated forms of vitamins and minerals that your adrenals need to function. Your thyroid needs things like selenium and that to function really well, right? And for conversion of hormones to happen. And same thing for your sex hormones. We need magnesium, for example, is a really important mineral to help support the function of those things. So at the root of it, a lot of it comes down to, we forget, we look at things in silos, but really the most important factor is every process in your body relies on vitamins and minerals to happen. And we get that primarily from food. Even the most organic, perfectly sourced supplement is still going to be secondary to eating and getting those vitamins and minerals from your food. So the more whole food based supplement or diet that you could take in, the better, one, your hunger and satiation hormones will cue. One, you're going to get more fiber, which is going to help pull things out through your gut, which is another way we process hormones. But then that's also going to help deliver you those vitamins and minerals in the way that your body wants them, and is going to be the best absorbed to support those hormonal processes.
Yes. And I like that you talked about adrenal. glands, because that too, like I'm not a health specialist at all, but I heard a lot about it these days, and it's like, well, take supplements. You're tired, just take supplements for your adrenal. And at some point I was just like, well, what are these glands anyway? Because I mean, there's so many different supplements, like you said, that you can go and take, that you can make yourself a cocktail every single morning. It's just, at some point, it's just ridiculous. What's a healthy diet I know you said whole food, but just like a bit more concrete, a healthy like day plan to avoid all these supplements?
The tough thing in today's world, especially if you live in the US, with our soil and nutrient depletion, I don't know if you're going to get a complete diet in where you can avoid supplementation entirely, right? And to know what supplements you should take in should be an individual thing based on other factors. But and especially I like what you just said, right? Starting to question, like, at what point do you stop the supplementation though, right? Because you're never going to out supplement a lifestyle that's not supportive of health, right? So I can take 20 supplements, but that's not going to undo the fact that I'm not sleeping at night. I'm exercising way too much for what my body can handle. I'm not managing stressors. I'm eating a nutrient poor diet, right? Like, that's never going to undo it. So when we're looking at like a foundational nutrition approach, and this is definitely in general terms, right? This can depend on the person, activity level, et cetera. But your meals should contain a few things. And I usually encourage 3 meals a day without a lot of snacking in between. Your gut needs a break. It's just like any other muscle. If I wanted to do bicep curls every hour all day long, eventually my bicep's going to get fatigued and it's not going to be able to perform the way that it needs to perform. Your gut needs a break. Eating every 2 to 3 hours, one, is not metabolically beneficial like we were taught, years ago. It's not true. But also, eating every 2 to 3 hours can be really stressful on your gut if you're already experiencing it. But the other thing that I run into is if you are feeling the need to eat every 2 to 3 hours, you're probably not eating meals that are satiating in the first place and containing the content that they should. So 3 meals a day for an adult is pretty solid. The reason toddlers need a snack is they're still growing and developing. Their bodies need more, right? We're not. Every meal should really contain a few things. And I always think of this as plug and play. There should be a solid protein source. Usually palm size at a minimum is a pretty good place to begin for a protein source. There should be a solid fat source, anywhere from like 1 to 3 tablespoons of fat, avocado, olive oil, even dark chocolate in some forms can qualify as a fat source, especially when you're around your period. It's great. And then it should have a starchy and a non-starchy carbohydrate. So starchy would be like your potato, rice, oats, something along those lines. Those are really hormonally beneficial too. And it should have non-starchy, which is like our veggies and things that should be contained at each of our meals. And starchy, I usually say, in general, a fist-sized serving is a pretty good place to aim. And non-starchy, I have never had to tell someone they're eating too many vegetables in a day. So like, that's never actually been a problem, right? So if I have to tell you you're eating too much broccoli, then we're in a pretty good spot in our life as nutrition intake. So usually 4 to 6 cups a day is a pretty good place to begin as far as servings for those.
No, and I like what I heard. Well, first of all, that dark chocolate it's my little devil, but I have some every day, and I've stopped fighting it. I'm just like, no, that's my treat every single day, and that's it. At least I eat the healthier chocolate. I stopped the milk chocolate, the commercial brands. But what I was going to say is that you said starchy vegetables. In my culture anyway, we've been taught to hate those and stay away from them. And and you're talking, well, if you want to have balance in your hormones, you also need that. So I find that it's really important to understand that, because we do need those things. And by dieting or by modifying or by trying to listen to one and the other, we end up cutting things in our diet that our body needs. It was there for a reason in the first place,
Right. Therapeutically, there can be times in someone's life where we do need to switch certain things, like if there's a specific gut issue happening or something like that. But therapeutic diets are not meant to be a long-term solution. They're meant to be short-term to correct something and then bring you back into, a lifestyle way of approaching things. So cutting those things out, especially for a woman, are not a long-term solution. And I see a lot of women all the time who are like, well, I'm having hormone issues, I'm going to go low carb. And I'm like, that's one of the worst things you could be doing if you're having hormone issues, is cutting them out. But it's really looking at, there's a lot of individual factors that can come into play, but your sex hormones and your adrenals need carbohydrates. The glycogen that our body's going to convert, which is just essentially the sugar, is one of our body's main sources that it prefers for fuel. So if we take those things out, there's a lot of controversy around this subject, right? But in the simplest form, if we're taking away one of our main sources of fuel, then we're depriving our body of something. Short term, it's not that big of a deal. But when we do that long term, we're creating a long-term issue or a chronic issue in our body. And the problem is a lot of nutrition studies that are out there right now are not done on women's bodies. Our bodies respond to things hormonally very different than a men's body, right? So or a male's body, when we see, studies and things saying like, oh, it created this and this and this, I'm like, that's actually not data from a woman. So it's really important to really look at the context of what is being put out there and that we're reading into. And we also see a pendulum swing, right? So we go from like the low carb era that we had to like, all carbs are awful, to all of a sudden it's no, carbs are great. And then we go to like, completely creating a blood sugar, crap storm with taking in way too many carbohydrates, where the reality is the truth a lot of times, especially in a lot of nutritional things, is probably somewhere in the middle. Like you need them, but you also shouldn't be over consuming them either.
And what do you think about gluten? I hope I'm not starting a debate here, but I just have a few friends that, and me included, kind of, we get to our 40s, 45, and then we're like, I can't tolerate gluten anymore. But then once in a while, I have my bowl of pasta, and I'm like, no, I can totally tolerate gluten,
Well, I welcome the debate, so it's fine if somebody doesn't like my, but not everybody, in my opinion, needs to be gluten-free. I personally have not had it in over a decade because I physically feel awful when I eat it. But especially I've noticed clients here in the US that have a problem with gluten don't consume it because they feel terrible when they do, but they can travel over to Europe and they feel fine eating the pasta or pizza or something along those lines and have zero issues. So I think there's something more to it than just gluten itself and maybe the processing aspect that I can't totally answer. But when we work with clients, we do a stool testing. And in that stool testing, we can see if they are having an immune response to gluten. And that's not a celiac test. That's a whole different conversation. But we can see, when you are taking this in, this actually is, impacting your gut and creating an issue. So we can tell, is this something that needs to maybe short term be removed? And then if we do add it back in, looking at the forms that we're taking it in, right? Eating gluten from a cupcake is very different than eating it from homemade sourdough bread, right? So sometimes the sources that we're bringing something in from too can make the difference of the consumption of it.
Yes. And too often it's the bagel from the corner street that we consider our gluten. Yes.
I'll have people say like, well, I ate a couple cookies, they were gluten-free. And I'm like, but they're still cookies, right? At the end of the day, a cookie is a cookie, whether it's gluten-free or not. The difference is just that you may not feel awful from eating that cookie that's gluten-free. So we get a misconception sometimes like, well, this is healthy because it's gluten-free. And I'm like, it's still a cookie, right?
I saw that on a bag of chip the other day, gluten-free. And I'm like, well, there was never gluten anyway.
Yeah. Yes, it's a marketing term now. Yes.
Yes. So, if we bring that to the simple, so you said whole food, we keep it, as whole as possible. So it means the less package as possible. Basically, that's, if you want to know if it's processed or not, if it shouldn't be packaged.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I usually encourage what we would say, it's a general thing you hear, but like 80-20. 80% of the time, the food that you're taking in should be whole, real foods. meant, like asking the question, like, what is this doing for my body? And 20% of the time, like, it is okay to just eat a cupcake because a cupcake sounds good, right? But the frequency in which you're doing those things really matter. So really looking at like, okay, 20% of the time I can just have something because it's what I want. It's important to prioritize a little bit of that in there as well. Otherwise, being too restrictive can sometimes be just as stressful, if not worse.
Yes, and honestly, of the women that I coached, the approach that we were taking, and that's why I'm not doing it anymore, was really based on calories. And
Yeah.
I don't believe in that 100%, because first of all, we all need, like you and me, have different calorie needs depending on what your day is like, and my day, and our age, and our whatever. So I wasn't agreeing with that, but also, like most women who came, their issue was way beyond calories.
Right.
Weight loss is in your mind as well, and how you feel in your skin is a lot. If I would throw a percentage out there, I would say it's at least 60% in your mind.
Yeah.
It is. So if you don't feel good, or if you don't feel worthy, or if you don't feel loved, these are all things that, forget the amount of calories, it's going to be a tough ride.
100%. I tell our clients, if you do not love yourself now, you will not love yourself 20 pounds less. It's not, the weight loss is not changing that for you. It might make you a little bit more confident in your clothes and comfortable in your skin and metabolically more healthy, but it's not going to change the way you treat yourself. I have personally done it. I've watched it happen way too often. I've been doing this for over 16 years. Like, I've watched it happen way too much. The same issues you are battling internally now will be the same issues you battled then. It's the same, you hear the term of like, more money will just make you more of what you currently are, right? Less weight is just going to make you the same, right? We're just with a different size pants. So it's really important to address the internal monologue, whatever that is now, and why that's there, while you're prioritizing those things at the same time. Because I always say, like, at the root, whatever that is usually the reason you are where you are in the first place, right? If you can address why you gained the 20 pounds, or why, that got there, then you can sustain what you lose. But if you aren't willing to address why you got where you are, it's going to be pretty tough to sustain it because you didn't learn the lesson.
Yes, and that's what I really like about your approach. It's not just it's not a weight loss approach. It's being a healthy woman, which includes, like, we're complicated, and there's a reason why men say that. It's true, because we're way more, sophisticated. So there's like a lot of parts to us. So there's more than one thing to look at. For sure, like a healthy diet, like you said, is prime, but that is something we should always do anyway. It's just that we decided at some point that no, fast food was fun, and those treats were fun, but you get to a point, I find, that when you go back to healthy, you don't even crave fast food anymore. Like, I don't crave it anymore, because I'll be like, no, I know how crappy I will feel after.
And I always say, I don't care what weight you are. It's more about the metabolic health, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really the thing. There are people that are really lean that are unhealthy too. We forget that, like, oh, I have to lose weight and I should look like that. I've seen people who are quote unquote 20 pounds over what their, BMI number would have them, but they're metabolically healthy. They're very happy. They're confident with where they are. That is health to me, more than the person who has six-pack abs and hates their body, right? So it's really important to consider those factors in there too.
Awesome. Well, Brooke, it was such a pleasure having you, and I've learned a lot again. What would you leave people with?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram. It's at Brooke Rozzie. And then we actually have, if you want to sign up for our email list, we can send you over the link. And it's the 10 main things from a foundational standpoint that we would suggest any woman be incorporating if they want to feel really good in their skin. So you can sign up for that and it'll be sent over to you.
How about you give us 2 or 3 of those 10?
Yeah. One of the biggest ones that we want to avoid is sleep. But it's where all of our hormonal restoration takes place, our emotional regulation, your cognitive function. Sleep is critical when it comes to results. The other ones we've already kind of touched on today, but one we didn't really discuss as much as strength training and incorporating strength training regularly into your routine. And then one that we don't discuss as often when it comes to health, but is really important, is having purpose, joy, relationship, having purpose, community. All, outside of, I see too many people who focus so much on the health that they forget about just enjoying where they are and just having that in there too. So that's a really important factor of health too.
That's so well said. Well, thank you. And thank you for being here today. I will put all of Brooke's information with the podcast. To everyone who was here today, thank you. I appreciate you. And Brooke, you know what? I will re-invite you because I know that down the road, people will need to hear it again.
Yeah, I would love to come back. Thank you.
Thank you.